In software engineering, we are taking chapter number 7, Principles that Guide Practice. Construction principles. So in software development life cycle, the process models you choose, the way you develop the software, it all starts with communication. You gather the requirement here. Then we do the planning, then the modeling or the design, and finally you do the construction, and then the delivery or the deployment. So this part, in this respect, what all principle as a software engineer, as a person working as a professional in software industry, when we are doing the coding or the testing, so the construction activity is all about, or it is having all the content of coding and testing. So coding can be done in various ways. Direct writing in code, that is the direct creation of programming language source code, for example Java, C#, etc. Then the automatic generation of source code, there will be intermediate design, and for example the enterprise architect. So this is the second way. Then there is also a possibility of automatic generation of the executable code using the so-called 4th generation programming language. For example, Visual C#, C, like this. Normally, we generally write the code by ourselves or use the pre-made code or the component which we have already designed or written. So the initial testing at the component level is called unit testing. For example, you have written a function called add, simplest function. Now you have just defined certain variables, added and just printed or returned. So when we test this function or a group of function, that is called a module, that is called the unit testing, the basic level. Unit testing is the basic level testing, right? So this is the first part. This is the part where we need to test. Then comes the integration testing. The initial start with unit testing. Then we have the integration testing. That is, we have different parts, and these parts we are combining together. So when we are combining together, we need to do the integration testing. Now user has given you some work, some requirement. These requirements have to be met as a complete system. So here we have to do the validation testing. Validation testing is done for the complete system or the software increment which has been delivered. So this is on the basis of the SRS or the requirement specification. Then finally user has to accept. When the user is accepting, user is going to test it. It will be, the basic will be the requirement specification, but user has all its feature and function he wants. So the customer or the user will exercise all these required features and function, and he will test for the acceptance. Preparation principles. Before you construct or go to the coding, there are certain fundamental principles which are equally applicable to coding as well as testing. That is, before you write a single line of code, you have to be very sure that you actually understand the problem. Normally, we just jump on coding, writing the code. But have we understood the problem? Are we aware of what problem need to be solved? What are the basic design principle and the concept? Because as a construction guy or a practitioner or a software programmer, you need to understand because the construction will be only done on the basis of the design. So you ought to know, you have to know the basic design principle. Then which programming language you have to use. For example, you may use a Visual Studio. You might use, say, NetBeans or Eclipse, any environment you can choose. But what environment or the programming language is best suited for the problem solution? You cannot take everyone. You just have to pick the best one. So you have to select the programming environment that will make your work easier. For example, you have debugger in it, you have some, indentation, automatic, static analysis can be done, or possibly the dynamic analysis can be done. So all these, before writing a code, you have to be very sure about all these aspects. And you have to do the unit test. Once you write a function, once you make a code, once you make a module or a component, you have to do the unit test, because the unit test is the responsibility of the practitioner. Coding principles. A practitioner or a coder or the programmer, what are the principles he has to follow? So as we begin writing actual code, we have to follow certain practice, like the structured programming practice. We were using the functional object oriented. There are so many type of programming paradigm or practice. But constrain your algorithm, because before coding you have to write the algorithm, or you have to follow certain algorithm. So make modularization, make functions, and those they should have the loose coupling. The function should have cohesion, and all the programming constructs you are going to use, that is already given in the structured programming. It's again a different concept. So structured programming has given what all you have to use. As the Agile is suggesting, especially the extreme programming, pair programming. That is, one person is coding, the other person is at the same time simultaneously, he is looking for the quality assurance issues, for the errors, for the bugs. If one person is coding, the other person may look for the standards to be followed. So 1 and 1 becomes 11, not 2. Select the data structure that meets the design. Coding is all on the basis of the models or the design model or the design. So what data structure is actually conforming to the design? For example, text stack you have to use, linked list you have to use, some array list you have to use. This should meet the design which was earlier made. Now understand the software architecture and create. As I said, the design comes out of architecture. So architecture is all about where you are going to fit. Architecture is the skeleton of the software. So where you have to fit your component, you need to know. And the conditional logic, that is if else, the loops, the logical, the component, the logical construct you are using. So you are using a lot of AND, sort of ORs, and these are so many nesting going on. So logic is where you are actually putting all the effort, and the problems also come there. So if you create multiple nested loops, for example, if else inside if else inside if else, and this goes on and on and on, it will be very difficult to test them where the problem is. Then you have to choose the meaningful variable names. For example, you are making a function called add and you are returning some value. So you are naming it, say, my fine day, one fine day, my name. These are not logical. The variable name should be something like add result or result of addition. These are the meaningful names. There are so many coding standards in industry being followed, like MISRA, etc. But the coding standard, if the company has decided, you must use the local coding standards. Write code that is self-documenting. Most of the time when we write some function, most of the good programmer, they write comment or they make some pictures, that is to prove and to ensure that the other person may know, and if he or she visits again, he must understand what he has done. That is, they are creating a visual layout, indentation, blank lines. This aids, this helps in understanding. For example, if else is there, if you want to write one more if else inside it, you will not write on one line, or this vertically they will not be in one line. There will be some indented, a tab or 4 characters ahead. So this will be a visual aid or help to the other people who are going to, say, technical review or code walkthrough. Validation principle. So what you have done is good or bad. After completing your first code, you see here we have a wash basin. The water is coming out when you put your hand in front of the sensor. but the water is flowing out of the wash basin. So here is a problem. Everything is working fine, but the actual problem is what was not defined or designed earlier. So you have to conduct a code walkthrough. Just go through the code. And as I said, you have to perform unit test and you need to correct the errors then and there. And then you can do the refactoring of the code. If some code is there, you have written 4 lines for certain thing. If it can be done in 1 line, then the basic is good. Refactor it. Testing principles. So once you have written the code, you need to verify, you need to validate the code. For that, we will use the testing principles, or these principles needs to be known. Now here is Glenford J. Myers. He has written a very famous book called The Art of Software Testing. Now this is a classic book on software testing. So he gave certain rules. Whenever someone is testing, so as a software tester, or as a software engineer, or as a software professional, you need to know that testing is process of executing a program with the intent of finding an error. Why I read this line? This is the definition of testing. Testing is done with an intent to find an error. So if you have done a testing and if you are not able to get any error, that means you failed a testing. You didn't do a good testing. So a good test case is all possibilities to check. You will check the boundary values, you will put the illegal values, you will put the legal values as well. So these are the test case. For example, if integer is there, you will try to put some floating point values. So a good test case is that which has the highest probability or possibility of finding an error which is yet undiscovered. The error you know is okay, but the error which is undiscovered, the good test case will pick it, take it out and put in front of you. A successful test is one that uncovers a yet undiscovered error. That is, if an error is there and your test is not finding it, your test is unsuccessful. Okay? So testing will demonstrate various things. You'll start with the software requirement specification. You will check for certain behavioral and performance related issue of the software. There are certain functional requirements, there are some certain non-functional requirements, and these all needs to be checked for a quality software. So quality is all about these. So whenever we collect this data of testing data is all about reliability and quality, how much you rely on the software, how much quality your software has. So this data of testing is a good indication of software reliability and the quantity as a whole. How many times software failed, what errors have come, what are the minor issues, what are the major issues, can it be used in the place of the environment for which this software has been built. This is reliability and quality. The testing cannot show the absence of errors and defects. Let me read it again. Testing can show the presence of errors and defects. This we learned again. The first line which we read was testing can show the presence of error and defect. So the negation of the sentence is testing cannot show the absence of errors and defects. Everett and Meyer, they suggested certain additional principles, if any tester, any software professional wants to do the testing. So we need to follow it all through the software development life cycle. First is all tests should be traceable to customer requirements. That is, there are certain customer requirements, put it in the form of requirement gathering in the form of SRS. So there are certain requirements. So all the test cases will be generated from here only. So all the testing will be traceable to SRS. Tests should be planned long before testing begins. What we do generally is we write a code and then prepare for testing. No, testing has to be done earlier. The Pareto principle applies to software testing. Now I have to discuss this now. Pareto principle is, see, if we have a software, for example, this is our software, right? This is all code. This is all the code. Now you take the 20% of the code. So the Pareto principle is saying the 20% of the whole code will constitute or will give you 80% of the errors. For example, if you have, I'll just give you numbers also. That is, a small part of the code will give you maximum error. For example, 10 lines you have written, 2 lines will give you 80% of the error. Okay, that the other 8 lines may only give 20% of the error. So testing should begin in small and progress toward testing in large. That is, you'll start with the unit testing, then you will do the integration testing, then any changes there, regression testing, then validation, verification, these all, and then finally the beta testing, like the acceptance testing. So start with the smaller testing and then you'll go up to the larger testing. Exhaustive testing is not possible. You can test up to 99%, 100% may not be possible, but the testing should be done. So what is this? This line I would like to read it, then I'll explain. Apply to each module in the system a testing effort corresponding with its expected fault density. Wherever the problem is, wherever the problem can come, we need to test it. That is, if you have produced new modules, some changes have come, software changes, and you have put in or implemented certain module. Either this module is not well understood or this module is newly created. The 80% of the problem will come from here. So the fault density of this particular code or this area is highest. So we need to test for this 20%. Static testing techniques can yield high results. That is, normally we use some tools like LDRA, like the rational tools, or some debuggers for static dynamic analysis like this. So actually the result, the theory is something different. It will just give you 15% of the error. 85% of the error can be detected using static analysis. That is, you have the requirement, you can go to the requirement check, you can go to the user manual, you can check, you can go to the code, you can check, you can do the technical review, you can go do the code walkthrough. All these are the static testing techniques, and these will give you the highest result possible. Okay, so 85% errors can be uncovered only without even running the code. Track defects and look for the patterns in defects uncovered by testing. Now, as I said, testing is the good indicator of your quality, reliability, various aspect of the software. So the total defects will tell you how much software quality is there. That is, if 100 errors are there, if you can make it to 10, the quality will be better. The type of defect is a measure of the software stability. There can be performance issue, usability issue. You can have, there's so many non-functional, functional requirement. So what are the type of defect? Whether it is coming in the functional requirement or the non-functional, or whether your software is failing, that is the type of defect, then this will correspond to the stability of the software. So total defect will give you quality, types of defect will give you stability. Okay. For example, if there is an error box and a question mark or a dot is there which you missed by somehow, that doesn't correspond to stability, that type of defect. Pattern of defects found over time can forecast number of expected defects. So say if you are delivering one increment and there is some number of defect, then you give the software increment say after 3 months, and then you uncovered here there are some certain number of defects, say after 3 months. So the number of these two defects will give you a forecast or an idea of how many expected defects you will have to encounter in the third increment. Include test cases that demonstrate software is behaving correctly. Normally we include test cases where we want to find out whether the software is not working, or why the software will behave incorrectly. But here we have to talk about and give the test cases to check whether the software is behaving correctly or not. Most of the time in the today agile environment, we always have changes. For example, if we change this line in the code, this error or this changing of the line may propagate error to some other function, some other module. So regression test has to be done that changes might not give or produce some other errors because of certain changes. Deployment principles. Once you make the software, you deploy the software, you deliver the software. So what are the principles, what are the underlying thoughts on this aspect of the software development lifecycle? So deployment or delivery is all about three things. There are three actions in total deployment. First, you do the delivery. Then you will support. After the delivery, give the support from your software organization. And finally, the feedback. You will get the feedback from the user. Because today's environment, as I said, agile, evolutionary, incremental model, so we don't give the software only once. We deploy the software multiple times. So this is an iterative process. So software increment, software delivery will be multiple times. So all this we are going to talk will correspond to the multiple times. Each delivery cycle provide the end user with a certain operational working software delivered increment. Each support cycle, every time you have to provide the documentation and the people like human assistants. There should be someone who is going to assist the customer, because the customer start using it, he will need help. So each feedback cycle in the software increment provides this software team or the software organization with certain changes, that is the modification of the function, modification of the feature, because you have to give the next increment. But before that, you will get some response. So whenever you are delivering an increment, or you can say delivering an operational software, what deployment principle we have to adopt as a software professional? So when you make a software, this is one operational, then again you add certain functionality, then you give the other increment. So the first thing, customer expectation for the software must be managed. Most of the time when we deliver the software to the user, he wants more, everyone wants more. So when he asks more and you say, no, we have done just 20 out of 50. So he gets disappointed. And once he gets disappointed, for the software team who has done so much of hard work, implementing these 20 prioritized important features, the morale of the team gets down. So this has to be managed. There is a book Jackman said in Managing Expectation. First thing is, most of the software team or management, they promise more than what they can deliver. Okay, I'll give an example. For example, in an increment, there are say 50 requirement as a whole, and we decide, most of the time we say, we'll deliver it. And sometimes you deliver more than what you have promised. This is also not good. That is, if 50 requirements are there, you are giving 22, so you are giving 2 more. If you are saying 50, you have asked for or confirmed for 20, you are giving 18, that is 2 less. That is also not good. So not more, not less. A complete delivery package should be assembled and tested. So whenever we are talking about code, it's not the whole software. All the executable software, the data files, the documents, these all should be taken as one whole software, and then this should be beta tested or acceptance tested using the actual users. That is, all the installation kit, installation scripts, all the operational feature that are given in SRS. This has to be thoroughly implemented, executed, exercised on all the possible computing configuration which has been agreed upon in SRS, like hardware, operating system, peripheral devices, networking arrangements. So there can be different configuration in different setup. The third principle is support regime must be established before the software is delivered. So once you deliver the software, there will be some problem of the user whom he is going to talk. User, because he has given you money, he wants or he expects a quick response. He wants the actual information because he is in some trouble, he is in some problem, he has some question. Now it is duty of the software team to solve it, or the support to solve it. That is, support should be planned, the materials should be there, say a user manual, etc. Record keeping mechanism should be established by the software company. There should be some instruction material, the user guides. There are so many things which we provide, like the installation kit and the compilation guide, etc. So the software team deliver the training aids. There may be some troubleshooting guides. That is, if error code are there, what you have to do. This has to be given. Most of the time, because there are strict deadlines, there are bugs and we know it, and then still we deliver it to the user, and that is not acceptable. Because what happens is, if you do good thing with certain person, he will be happy, but if you do bad thing with the person, he will remember that thing forever, because the software you have delivered, he is facing the software, using the software every day, and he is aware of the problem. Work practices. Now, Skoll, he writes that the quality of software is the main parameter which makes a software good or bad. This is basically in the competitive environment, world, market. These are the difference between two companies. Okay. So human aspects is also very important, because who is working, for whom you are working? People. So along with the basic traits and work habit of the people, there are so many work practices which a software professional should know and should put in the practice. So these are 10 concepts which are true with the software engineers, software engineering, in the software development life cycle. So finally, you have to see all these things. First are interfaces. Simple interfaces are always less error prone. For example, you have, say, network interface, database interface. All these are prone to problems. So we have to be very careful while making it. The convention and template. Every document, every content should be in the same template, and the naming convention should be such that the user can also understand, your people who are going to manage your software should also understand. Layering. You know, the design is a different part, implementation is a different part. So you have to keep them separate. That will reduce the complexity. Algorithmic complexity. For example, you made a file transfer code and say the 5 minute it is taking, and the industry standard, the file transfer should be in 2 minutes. So there is a complexity in the algorithm. It will be time complexity, it will be space complexity. So you need to make a good code so that this complexity is as least as possible. Okay. Hashing is a way of efficiently, retrieving the data. First, storage, and this is a code basically. So you have to use this, try wherever you want to use. Caching is very important. Sometimes thrashing will be, you'll encounter thrashing. Some data, if you're using, the dependent data should also come in the cache so that it can be accessed easily in the faster manner. So in your programming, in your software development, hashing aspect have to be used. The concurrency is very important, because in most of the today's processors, we have multi-processor, multi-threaded programming you have to apply. Cloud computing, we have already talked about this. You have to use the cloud computing wherever it is possible. The security, the privacy, the confidentiality aspect, the integrity of the assets of your asset and the customer asset should be the key. You have to secure your data, you have to put all your effort to guard your data and keep the integrity as expected by you, your organization, and your customers. The database you can use, depending upon your work, you can use Oracle, MongoDB, the flat file, or the tabular form, whichever you like. For the database, how to reduce the data redundancy, how to maximize the speed of the retrieval, this also you have to see as a work practice. This is the basic work practices. So this is all about this topic. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.